Across the Universe, directed by Julia Taymor, starring Jim Sturgis and Evan Rachel Wood. This is a lot of fun, actually. I really like that the entire musical is just Beatles songs, which I like the Beatles. They're obviously very good, but like, I enjoy the Beatles music quite a bit, and this was just a bunch of their hits for the most part. I mean, every song on here has its own Wikipedia page. They are all pretty big, well-known songs. There's nothing like, no real deep cuts in here. It's still a lot of fun because the Beatles hits are hits for a reason. They are all great. Every song in this is amazing, and they use that to their advantage because sometimes in musicals the music isn't the best. In this case, it is good. It carries the movie for the most part, but that's not to say that the movie itself isn't a lot of fun. Set on the backdrop of the Vietnam War and the protests involved, we follow protesters and them trying to pull U.S. from the Vietnam War, which was a very big thing at the time, and that's good. I like to see protesters. I like to see people doing things. It's the kind of movie I like. However, I don't really love the way they portray the protesters in this movie. It's not that they're dumb, but they seem kind of inept and like they're not really accomplishing anything, which I don't love, because the protests against the Vietnam War accomplished a lot of things, and I think we kind of forget that as time goes forward, how much that those protests really did impact the United States as a whole. It just, in general, military morale was killed during the Vietnam War. Like, nobody wanted to be in the military, and that continues to today, where most people just don't want to be in the U.S. military. We view the U.S. military at large as not a great organization, not a positive thing. We see the military as not good. There are people, obviously, who do like the military and who do see it in a positive light. And that's not to say that the soldiers themselves are viewed in a negative light. I think we, as a country, have a lot of patriotism towards the actual soldiers, but the military as a complex, as a overarching part of our government, is usually negatively viewed. It has a lot of negative connotations to it because of things like the Vietnam War and the protests that came from it. That is a cultural shift that has lasted 50 years now. That's a big repercussion from these protests. It also resulted in the lowering of the voting age from 21 to 18, which is just a good thing. Like, if you're old enough to go to war, you're old enough to vote for the people sending you to war. And that's good. So, like, that's just a clear positive that came out of these protests that you really can't take away or have a differing opinion. That is a good thing. At 18, you are an adult. You have every right to have a say in your government. And these protests made that possible. Before this, you were 21 to vote in America, and now it's 18. And that's just a good thing. That is just freedom, growing, more freedom for people, and that's what the country is built on, right? Freedom, more freedom. These people are adults, they can be sent to war in the draft, well, then they should be able to vote for the war, and that is just a positive. That's something that came out of these protests that is just positive. And not to mention, the protests did result in the ending of funding and support for Vietnam. Like, we did just leave, right? Like, obviously, it wasn't positive that we didn't leave in a positive way. Obviously, there's a lot of problems that come in. I'm not going to get too far into all the weeds on this, but we did leave Vietnam. That's what we wanted. That was the point of the protest, and it succeeded. It did that. Also, it ended Lyndon B. Johnson's presidency. Like, he didn't seek re-election or anything. It was a bad thing for him. Like, he just was done. And that's, again, good. And that's good. Nobody liked him anyway. Yes, he did take over the remainder of Kennedy's term after his assassination, and he did get formally elected the one time, giving a total of 6 years as president, but he didn't get a second term. And he could have. He was only president for a couple of years following the Kennedy assassination, so he could have gotten a second term, and he did not. He did not even seek re-election, which is good, because we don't like him. Nobody likes Lyndon B. Johnson. He's no one's favorite president. He sucked. He was terrible. So, positives did come from these protests. And I don't really like the way that they're framed in the movie. They come across kind of incompetent, especially at the end where they kill, like, they blow themselves up with a shitty bomb. That just doesn't feel... That feels antithetical to the movie, especially with all the Beatles music in it that was very heavily against the Vietnam War. It feels like this movie wants to be anti-war, and it, for the most part, is, but at the same time, it paints the protesters and the people against the war to be kind of dumb, and that mixing doesn't really work for me. I don't love that, but it does mostly come towards the end of the movie. Throughout the movie, they are somewhat competent. It doesn't focus too much on that. It does focus much more on the relationship between the main characters, and so for that, it is still a fun movie. It is still quite an enjoyable watch. I just think the bomb thing at the end was kind of stupid, and generally I don't love the way they paint the protesters. But other things, I did really like the cast in this movie. While Evan Rachel Wood and Jim Stargis are really fun in the roles, I also really enjoyed Martin Luther McCoy as Jojo. I thought that was a lot of fun. And I really like that every character is named either after a Beatles song or after someone in a Beatles song. If you look on Wikipedia, you can get like a full list of who is named for what, which is neat, but you can listen to a lot of it and just kind of figure it out. It's really cool that they did that, though. And this movie does have a lot of ties to the Beatles, so I think this movie's how good it is and how much you're gonna like it is very much gonna be tied to how much you like the Beatles. If you enjoy the Beatles music, this is probably gonna be a good movie for you. Like, there's not really anything in here that's not already present in Beatles music, especially from a political sense, since this movie does, take place during the Vietnam War and is very antithetical to it. There is the case that you don't agree with that for some reason, but to be honest, if you don't, you probably don't like the Beatles music anyway, so I don't know why you'd be watching this. And if you do, then if you do like the Beatles music, then you probably agree with most of the messaging behind the movie, so it's going to be fun. Both the Beatles music and the messaging. But the movie is a lot of fun. The music is really good, and that is kind of the thing that holds the whole movie together. It is a jukebox musical, which means the music is primarily how they're telling a lot of this story, and it's really interesting that they get to use all these songs that already existed to kind of work backwards and tell a story. I like that. That's interesting, that's fun. It is a unique thing to jukebox musicals. Usually when you're writing a musical, the music is written for the scenes, like it's written to tell the story. But in this case, they're kind of working backwards and doing so with one artist's work. I mean, it's for people, but doing so with one band's work is really cool. And lastly, I just want to talk about the visuals for a second. This movie looks amazing. I love the, kind of shitty green screening that they used for so much of this movie because it looks really cool. I love that aesthetic. I love the way that looks. It's more like a stop motion live action. I don't really know how to explain it. I'll try to put something on the screen for it.
Trampoline. The Hendersons, they're gonna dance and sing as Mr. Kite flies through the rain.
But it is... I love this aesthetic that they use for the movie. I love the way that the soldiers crawling in the woods with the trees and everything, and then a foot comes down and it transitions. All of that is pretty prominent throughout the movie, and it looks so cool. This is kind of a style that's died out a little bit, but I do really like it, and it is cool to see it in this. Anyway, thanks for watching. This is a really cool movie. I do have it on DVD. It is available on Tubi. Really want to upgrade to the 4K copy, but the 4K copy is kind of expensive. But it's absolutely worth it. Watch the movie, especially if you like Beatles music. If you're a fan of the Beatles, there's not really a reason not to watch this. It is a lot of fun, and it's just a generally good musical. Anyway, thanks for watching.